the DRT order is out. Mallya cannot temporarily draw amount as sought earlier. Mallya cannot, as sought earlier by banks. So that's the first line of the verdict. We'll try and get you more details, especially on what happens with the $75 million of that amount that came in from Diageo. What happens to that amount, as SBI is claiming the first right of refusal on it. So let's see what has come out in the judgment regarding that important issue. For now, the DRT order's first line states that Mallya cannot temporarily draw amount as sought by banks. So that gives some respite to SBI as of now. That's what I'm reading from the first line. And Mr. Ranina as well as Mr. Luna are with us. As we look at the finer details, would you want to react, Mr. Ranina, to just the first line? Mr. Luna, I'll come to you first, rather. Just that first line that, he for the time being, temporarily, he cannot resort to withdrawing that amount of $75 million. Mr. Luna, can you hear me? Okay, we'll try and patch that line with Mr. Luna, but this is the only piece of information that we have, the only line from the order. Vijay, come in on this. Mallya cannot temporarily draw amount as sought by banks. So, it gives some respite. Let's hear out what the other final details are in the order. But before that, just a quick perspective on just this first announcement. It gives some relief to the banks that, this money is not going to be withdrawn by Mr. Mallya.
Absolutely, Tanya. This is indeed a huge relief coming in for the 17 consortium banks led by SBI, and huge drawback for Vijay Mallya. The primary reason I am mentioning this is SBI always just said that they had the first right of refusal. So they wanted to ensure that this money of $75 million or 516 crores doesn't go to Mallya or any which ways Mallya withdraws this money which Diageo paid. So to that extent, their plea has been accepted, and the interest of this PSU banks led by SBI has been taken care, where now the money Vijay Mallya cannot withdraw this particular money of $75 million or 516 crores, because the judge clearly says that till the disposal of the final case, this cannot be withdrawn. So clearly a huge reprieve coming in for SBI and other consortium bankers who have lent money to Vijay Mallya and Kingfisher Airlines, and this yet another will be a huge setback for Vijay Mallya. Clearly, finally, although late, law is catching up with Mallya and the defunct Kingfisher Airlines, but clearly for SBI this will come at a huge reprieve, because their whole idea to approach the DRT after this deal was signed between Mallya and Diageo was to ensure whatever money is directly going to Vijay Mallya for the non-compete agreement or the severance package that they gave should be protected, as the banks have been fighting tooth and nail to recover every pie of this 7,000 crores that they have lent to Kingfisher Airlines. So indeed a huge relief coming in for SBI and other bankers in this consortium who have led to Kingfisher Airlines, and we'll have to wait and see for the final details of the DRT order.
Oh yes, indeed. But I have more details right now with me. So the order is clearly in favor of SBI in the plea against Mallya, and Diageo cannot disburse. This is the important one. Diageo cannot disburse the money, which is $75 million, to Mallya as of now. So this completely blocks the way for him getting the settlement payment from Diageo, and that's a big relief for SBI. And this case in a way sets precedence on how things can shape up in the future in terms of recoveries from potential promoter defaulters. But Mr. Ranina joins in as well into this conversation. Mr. Ranina, this was pretty much expected, and it's played out as you were highlighting earlier on.
Yes, you're absolutely right. This is certainly a step in the right direction, but it's an interim order. The question is, can SBI get this money? The issue is that SBI will not get the money. Even Mr. Mallya cannot take the money. So is Diageo going to be the beneficiary? Are they going to hold back the money? I think we have to wait and see whether that money
All
has
right.
to be deposited.
Mr. Ranina, I'll have to interrupt you there. I think Chandra has the order with her. Chandra, read it out for our viewers.
Tanveer, it was just 2-3 lines that the judge said. He said temporarily he does not allow, that he will not allow Diageo to disperse the money to defendant, which is Vijay Mallya, and that Mallya cannot draw this amount temporarily. I think the key word there is that this is a setback today for Vijay Mallya, a temporary setback at that. But clearly, at least as far as this round is concerned, banks have had their way, which means that the $75 million which Diageo is supposed to transfer to Mallya as part of the non-compete pact, that money will not come to him now. They have temporarily asked Diageo not to disperse that money till the case is disposed. Now remember, SBI had filed 4 applications. This is just one of them.
He has not got the money to release it. Okay.
And if you release the money, and will that money be attached with court?
Temporarily it has been restrained. That's it. No other orders have been passed as yet.
Next hearing date?
28th of March.
Okay. Sir, one second, sir.
The application filed by the bank has been allowed. Temporarily we have been restrained not to receive the money. Yes, the DRT. It is the bank's application which has been allowed right now. Temporarily it will be decided again by the court on the 28th of March. Yes. No.
Thank you.
I was really trying to figure out what does temporarily really mean at this point, but that means just another date. So 28th March is when the matter is taken up again. So till then, the amount has been attached to the bank essentially. Chandra.
Tanveer, I think temporarily here would mean till the case is disposed of altogether. I think SBI wanted to move in really fast because, once that disbursement happens, they cannot control anything, and they would have also painted a very sorry picture because on the one hand, they are trying to recover 7,000 crore of Kingfisher debt, and on the other hand, Mallya just walks away with $75 million as part of a sweetheart deal. So temporarily means for now, Diageo cannot disperse anything unless the case is disposed of altogether. The 28th March that you heard is the date for the other 3 applications. As I was saying, there are 3 other applications that SBI has filed. One seeking arrest, one seeking passport freeze, and one seeking disclosure of assets. Those 3 applications have not been heard so far. The only one that's been heard is the Garnishi application, which has to do with attachment of $75 million. And in that respect, it's definitely a relief for banks today.
Oh, yes, indeed. But how does this case then play out? Because if you're saying that on March 28th, the other 3 applications of SBI will be taken up for hearing, then till what point does this judgment hold? Have more dates been given out on the next final hearing in this matter on this particular case where the fate of the $75 million that Mr. Mallya owes or has received from Diageo is decided?
Tanveer, there are 2 things happening here. So SBI has approached the Debt Recovery Tribunal with these applications, but because some of the applications with respect to arrest and impounding of passport may not hold ground here, they have also moved these applications simultaneously as a writ petition in the Karnataka High Court. So they are not taking any chances if they don't get relief from DRT with respect to passport freeze and arrest. They will seek that in the Karnataka High Court. So this week, the Karnataka High Court will also hear that writ petition from SBI. So I think it's important to note here that SBI has moved 2 different forums for relief in this case. One is the Debt Recovery Tribunal and the other is the Karnataka High Court.
Okay. Chandra, just stay on with us. You may have a few questions for our legal panel. Mr. Hitesh Jain is with us on the phone line. Mr. H.P. Ranina is with us as well. And we have Mr. Majid Menon too joining in for their legal perspective. Good evening to all 3 of you. Let me start off with you, Mr. Jain. How are you reading into this verdict? This is a temporary relief, but a lot more has to be contested with in terms of the second deadline coming up on March 28th, and then simultaneously the hearings happening in the Karnataka High Court.
Well, even if this is a temporary relief, it is a first step towards the direction the banks want to take. So at the first instance, you do not expect the banks to get the entire relief. But the very fact that they have been able to obtain an order restraining Diageo from disbursing the funds, I think it's a step in the right direction for the bank. And I think after hearing all the parties on 28th March, once the court, there is no doubt about the fact about the liability. Now the only thing is whether this amount can be attached in pursuance to that. So that needs to be seen. So I think it's a good step. One should not read much more beyond that, because at the end of the day, this is a temporary relief, temporary order. But we will have to wait for 20th March till they get the final order. And ultimately, the bottom line is, irrespective of whatever the relief, whether the bank will be able to lay its hand on this fund, that is what we will have to see in this case.
Mr. R.S. Luna Chandra here from ET Now in Bangalore, just outside the Debt Recovery Tribunal. Just explain to us what temporarily means here. I mean, is it till the case is entirely disposed? And at this point, can Mallya's side appeal against this order at the Debt Recovery Appellate Tribunal in Chennai? Does he have that option?
Certainly, I think any order of the DRT will be appealable, and he will have a right to go in appeal. And secondly, looking at the order, I really do not see much there, though on face of it looks like that SBI has got some relief. But in real sense, I don't see much relief, or any relief as a matter of fact, because what the order says that Diageo will not give the money to Vijay Mallya. In other words, what SBI is looking for is to have that money. So this money is neither coming to Mallya, not coming to SBI as of now. So if it goes into litigation dispute, it may happen that the deal between Diageo and Mallya may fall through, and whatever SBI is trying to look for, they may not be able to get it.
Right. Mr. Raina, just going to pick your brains on that aspect. The judge hasn't explicitly said that, this money is going to go from Diageo to SBI instead of Mallya. He's just said we temporarily restrain Diageo from dispersing any money to Mallya. So what really happens to $75 million in that case? Because by virtue of moving a garnishee application, SBI would have wanted first right to that, but even that is not coming through. So, should they be happy today, or, does this create more confusion? Your take on this?
Well, my take on it is that this is not going to help SBI. I wish the DRT had said that this money will remain deposited with SBI. Then at least some benefit would have been there for SBI. But it only means now that Diageo will continue to hold on to that money, that they don't have to pay either to Vijay Mallya or to the SBI. So really the real beneficiary of this judgment is Diageo, because they will continue to hold on to that money. They have only been restrained from disbursing it to Vijay Mallya, but they have not said that this money will remain deposited with State Bank of India subject to the final order. So this is my take on this, that I think the beneficiary of this order is really Diageo and not either SBI or Vijay Mallya.
Raina saying the actual beneficiary might be Diageo because they don't have to disburse $75 million to anyone at this point. But Hitesh Jain, taking this into context, plus the Enforcement Directorate order today, how will things play out for Mallya? And at least this time around, do you expect some of the money to actually be recovered? Because so far what we've seen in the last 3 years is completely procedural, from one court to the other, from one government agency to another. But will we finally start seeing some of this money being recovered? Because at the end of the day, this is, getting reflected on balance sheets of some state-run banks.
Okay, I think there's an audio problem, but Mr. Luna, would you want to take up that question that Chandra raised? And I'm completely with her on that. You know, this is one date after another. And in a way, would you also be a bit disappointed that there has been no directional, judgment given out? It's more like, this is a temporary reprieve and we'll see how things progress, and then maybe another date, and you have a simultaneous plea going in the Karnataka High Court. This plea can also be appealed against by Mr. Mallya. It doesn't give as much clarity as one had hoped for.
Yeah, that's right. I already have said that it really doesn't give much relief to SBI, what they were looking for. But maybe it's a little bit psychological relief or benefit that, they were asking for something and the DRT has not outrightly rejected that plea. To that extent, I would say that they should be satisfied. But the order as such does not give much, because the money is with Diageo, the money is not with Mr. Mallya, neither is SBI. So the object of SBI approaching the DRT, that they should have the first right to this money, that I don't think is emerging anywhere as of now. We have to see the further proceedings, and then in any case, as earlier said also, that Mr. Vijay Mallya will have a right to go in appeal to the higher authorities. Now, what the higher tribunal will look at that, how they will decide, one will have to watch that also. But yes, I would agree with you that now the Enforcement Directorate's action against Mr. Vijay Mallya, that certainly is going to put more pressure on him, make his life more difficult. And because Enforcement Directorate's proceedings are basically under the PMLA, and there are much more powers with the enforcement authorities, they can proceed against not only the secured assets of the borrower guarantor, but they can proceed against any assets of the person who is involved in this money laundering activity. So I think from that angle, the noose will tighten against so far as Mr. Mallya is concerned, and we'll have to watch out that ultimately what comes out of all that.
Hitesh, coming to you again, considering the DRT hasn't really done something constructive today in terms of ensuring that amount actually goes to SBI. Now, does SBI have any other recourse? Can they move a similar garnishee application with the High Court, just like what they've done, seeking arrest and impounding of passport? Can they now take this battle to another forum, or is this something that's only under the Debt Recovery Tribunal's jurisdiction?
You can hear us clearly. Oh, I think we've lost the line with him. Mr. Ranina, if you're with us, I just want to take that question up with you. In short, what's the next course of action for SBI, because they've not got the kind of verdict that they were expecting or the kind of reprieve that they were expecting from this judgment. Would you say you're a bit disappointed?
Yes, I think I'm disappointed. But what the State Bank can do is to once again make an application to the DRT and ask them to make an order to say that this money will remain deposited in an escrow account with a legal firm, so that it's not that any undue advantage is derived by Diageo if they have to pay the money. Therefore, they can make an application again to the DRT and ask for rectification of this today's order. That is possible. And if they refuse to do so, then State Bank of India can approach even the High Court to say that at least the money should remain deposited in an escrow account, so that later on there's no difficulty in recovering that money in case the DRT gives a decision in favor of SBI.
Yeah, and that's my point. Hitesh Jain now joins in with us. And Hitesh, I'll just combine the points made thus far in Chandra's question. Do you not believe that something could have been more concrete in this judgment, like setting up an escrow account so that the money is not with one party? Right now, it seems like, Diageo is not going to release the money, so neither Mr. Mallya benefits, but SBI also which is looking at recovering their dues, also doesn't get much of a respite here. By keeping, an escrow account or transferring the money to an escrow account, they could have been a little more clear and direct in the course that this judgment would have taken over the next couple of weeks. It doesn't. The judgment doesn't offer the kind of clarity that one hoped for.
As I mentioned to you, the judgment is on the first date, you cannot get the entire order. At best, the possibility the best order could have been the deposit of money in the court. So in the circumstances today, as the earlier speakers, as I was hearing them, so what is happening is that Diageo can rework the deal with Vijay Mallya, or Vijay Mallya says that the deal has been called off. So if there is no money, there is no question of any further hearings also. So in the absence of any order which required the Diageo to deposit the money in the court, so I mean, to the extent it is, I can only read the order from the perspective that it is just like a small step towards the larger object which the banks want to achieve, that is to receive the funds. So purely in this circumstances, when you look into it totality, I mean, this order also gives Diageo and Vijay Mallya to work out any alternative deal.
Mr. Luna, I want to bring you in on this. Looking at all the things put in perspective, would you have hoped for something different today? And if you were in SBI's position, what would your course of action be next?
Well, so far as I'm concerned, I think that it's very difficult to make an order against Diageo that they should put this money in the escrow account. One, I think the kind of dispute is before the DRT, that is basically a simple recovery proceeding by the SBI against the company and the guarantors. And Diageo, I don't think really comes into picture in that way. And asking Diageo for various kind of actions, I don't know where the action will lie, but the Diageo itself is not a relevant party for that kind of proceeding. Yes, I think the appropriate forum could have been a place like High Court, where you can go and raise all these issues, and the High Court has a much more wider power. They can look beyond the DRT Act, because DRT ultimately has again to act within the ambit of the DRT Act, and in my view, under the DRT Act, they have very limited scope and powers. So if I am in place of somebody acting for SBI, I would emphasize more on the proceedings before the High Court as compared to proceedings before the DRT.
Hitesh, comment on that very point, because that's the heart of the matter. This was all about SBI recovering its dues. If you were the SBI counsel, would you be happy with this decision, or would you look at the next step? And if so, then what would that be?
Well, as a SBI counsel, I don't see any reason not to be happy, because as I mentioned, on the first date, I cannot get the entire money. At best, I could have hoped for the deposit of money in the court. But as we rightly know, Diageo is not a party. And if the party says that they are working the deal, and DRT has got no power to, unless there is a situation where Diageo, there is a date or all the terms are complied and Diageo is depositing the money in Mr. Mallya's account. So treating this as Mr. Mallya's money and all, but this will require a far more detailed inquiry. And today on this date, except restraining Diageo from disbursing the amount, I don't think SBI could not have achieved to get any possible order. And in the matters of recovery proceedings and all, I mean, such applications are made. Along with that, several other applications are made. But again, when we look from the total perspective for the bank, I mean, just from the temporary perspective, fine, they've got an order restraining. But ultimate test is that whether they will be able to succeed in the interim order and try to lay its hand on the money from which Mallya was going to receive from Diageo.
Right. Mr. Raina, just have a technical question here. One of the things that Mallya's lawyer kept saying in his client's defense was that the $75 million is money that Mallya got based on his competence in running a liquor business for the last 4 decades. So that technically cannot be, claimed by banks. Do you think that argument will really hold going forward, that he can use this argument to say, this is the money that I've earned for my competence in the liquor industry, don't drag this into Kingfisher Airlines? Or is that a baseless argument because he's personal guarantor for all Kingfisher dues?
I agree with you. I think it's a baseless argument, assuming that Vijay Mallya has given a personal guarantee. Because if he has given a personal guarantee, then any asset from whatever source which he may have, that is liable to be paid to discharge his dues. So personal guarantee means it's your personal money. So he can't say that this compensation is paid to me because of my personal commitment not to start a competing business in India. Even if it's a personal commitment, this is his personal asset. Nobody disputes this is a personal asset. But if he has given a personal guarantee for the loan given to Kingfisher Airlines, then he's bound to pay that money to the banks in discharge of his personal guarantee.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Luna, I just want to come in on this because, aside of SBI, there are a consortium of 16 other banks that, have money with Kingfisher Airlines, have exposure to the tune of nearly 7,000 crores in total. SBI is close to about 2,000 crores out of that amount. But if, they were also looking at recovery mechanisms at this point in time, do you think the better bet is to go via the High Court route, as you suggested earlier, and, not perhaps, file a plea with the Debt Recovery Tribunal?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that, the DRT Tribunal has to act within the DRT Act's ambit. And as I understand the DRT Act, its ambit and scope is very limited. And accordingly, the powers of the DRT presiding officer, they are also very limited. So he has to act within that only. But as compared to that, the powers of High Court are very vast, particularly under the writ jurisdiction, and they can give any kind of relief which is available in just and equity, and they don't have to entirely go by law. And so I think, in my view, the real battle, if at all, probably the SP will be able to win in High Court and not in DRT.
Right. Mr. Arena, is that, the advised course of action for other PSU banks looking at recovering their dues from Kingfisher Airlines and Mr. Mallya in person?
Yes, I think so. Mallya in person would be liable, but I agree with Mr. Lunia that matter should now be taken to the High Court, because the High Court has much wider powers, and they can certainly require that the money be deposited in the court so that nobody gets any undue advantage out of this order. And that is, I think, what the SBI should now do, and get an order from the High Court itself.
This is an interesting twist in the story. And Chandra, about half an hour back, we were hoping that SBI would be far more relieved with this judgment. It's still a judgment in favor of SBI, but, not so much clarity coming in terms of the mode of the payment and the course of action from here on.
That's right, Tanveer. But I'm not sure how technically it would have worked if the judge just said that the amount should be deposited to SBI directly, because SBI, remember, is heading the consortium of banks that collectively stand to get a lot of loans from Kingfisher. Of course, SBI might be the leader of the consortium, but I think we will wait for more clarity on how the judge plans to go about this. Whether he could have technically transferred the money from Diageo to SBI, SBI, or if it should only be taken by an escrow by the court till the case is disposed. So I think that is something that even SBI's lawyers will see clarity on. But I think, as both our guests said, the recourse for them now would be the Karnataka High Court, where SBI has moved both a writ petition seeking arrest and impounding of passport. Separately, we have to wait and see if Mallya's lawyer decides to go to the DRT in Chennai, which is the appellate tribunal, to even contest this temporary restraining that the judge has given against Diageo dispersing the money.
Chandra, stay on with us. We have our reporters out there in the field tracking every angle to this story. And one more addition comes in the form of an ET Now exclusive that we're breaking right now. Sources indicate that the Service Tax Department has also tightened the noose around Mr. Vijay Mallya. I'll not give out the story. I'll let Ashwin Mohan, who has the details, come in with the specifics. Ashwin, what are you picking up? The Service Tax Department now getting after Mr. Mallya for payment?
That's right, Tanvir. In fact, this is a huge move by the Service Tax Department, and clearly all the enforcement agencies, along with SEBI, ED and the Tax Department, are now cornering Vijay Mallya. What I'm picking up from sources is that the Service Tax Department has in fact tightened the noose around Mallya and filed a fresh plea at the Bombay High Court. Now, here's what this plea seeks before the Bombay High Court. Number one, obviously this is a case of non-payment of dues. So therefore, they want to secure Vijay Mallya's presence in India. And therefore, I understand from sources that the fresh plea filed by the Service Tax Department has in fact sought the impounding of the passport of Mr. Vijay Mallya. Clearly, there is an ongoing prosecution case that is on against him at the Service Tax Department. So they have sought an impounding of his passport. That's the first ground on which the plea has been filed. There's also a parallel case, Tanvir, that is going on at the Bombay High Court. And that was a case wherein the Service Tax Department had challenged what they term as a wrongful classification of non-payment of dues as a bailable offence. That was a lower court order that they had challenged at the Bombay High Court. Now in this plea, they have sought a fast-tracking of the hearing of that case as well. Because that's a crucial case, because the Service Tax Department's argument in that case is that if Vijay Mallya failed to pay the dues, then that is a non-bailable offence. So those are the two parallel planks on which I understand from sources that they have dragged Vijay Mallya to the Bombay High Court. And we'll have to wait and watch to see in the next few days. This crucial case will come up for hearing. But big move from the Service Tax Department. They are seeking an impounding of Vijay Mallya's passport. So therefore, the pressure clearly piling on from all the enforcement agencies.
Oh, absolutely. He's in a spot, and this is as tough as it gets. But Ashwin, very quickly, what is the total due that the Service Tax Department is claiming? Just for the benefit of our viewers.
Tanvir, as of December at least, my understanding is that the dues are anywhere in the region upwards of 30 crore rupees. But let's not forget that there are multiple cases that have been filed against him. There are fresh charges that have been leveled. So therefore, that amount could go up. And it all depends on the interest component as well. So we'll have to, that's a dynamic figure, that's a moving figure. But as of December, at least, it stood at around 30 crore rupees or 30 to 32 crore rupees. And let's also not forget that this bailable offence order that they are challenging at the High Court, that's under CRPC, which is a Code for Criminal Procedure. So clearly, these are serious allegations that have been leveled against him. And of course, as an authority which feels that the dues should be paid to them and which haven't, they clearly want to ensure that Mr. Mallya is in India for any courtroom proceedings and also for the ongoing prosecution proceedings. So clearly, they are, of course, guarding their tax base, and therefore they have filed this fresh plea at the Bombay High Court, Tanvir.
All right, Ashwin, thanks very much for bringing us those exclusive details. Clearly, Mr. Mallya is in a bit of a spot, and he has to face all these allegations with a bit of a brave heart at this point in time. But thanks very much, Chandra, Ashwin, our legal panel, Mr. Ranina, Mr. Luna, for putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. Mr. Hitesh Jain as well for joining us today to analyze the order of the Debt Recovery Tribunal, which has given some reprieve to SBI, but a lot remains to be done, and that will happen over the course of the next couple of weeks. The next hearing at the DRT is slated for March 28th. In the meanwhile, the Service Tax Department has also come in with a fresh appeal in the Bombay High Court against Mr. Vijay Mallya. Add to that, the Enforcement Directorate is also filing a case against him by which they can actually attach his assets in India and abroad for liquidation in case he fails to pay his dues, which he has done so far, and in case he's not able to find an alternate solution to make payments. That's the story in total, the sum and summary of this big saga which continues. We'll track every bit of it as we go along through the evening. Thanks very much for watching our exclusive coverage of the Mallya mess.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.